Yeah, I do feel like it helped me get in touch with who I am.
Hey, you might not realize this now, but stabbing your ex-husband and his mom and then shanking Tina in the cafeteria may be exactly what you needed at that moment.
I know.
You know I drowned my kids, right?
What? You never told me that?
Yeah, something just came over me and I drove them in the lake and just walked away. Sure, they were screaming, but I knew that I just needed to focus on me.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta be selfish and do what's best for you.
Women don't do that enough. I mean, my mother didn't agree with my decision, but you can't live your life for the approval of others.
You know I killed his dog before stabbing him?
I don't know exactly why you killed your ex-husband's dog, but I do know that the universe doesn't make mistakes.
Everything is as it should be.
Do I miss my kids? Sure, but in life there are no wrong turns, only unexpected paths. And if that unexpected path brought my kids to the bottom of the lake, I need to trust the process.
Yeah, you know, sometimes I just think it was the meth.
Don't say that. Never regret anything that made you smile.
I know, I just could have done less, and sure I have these new teeth, but sometimes I miss my old teeth.
Hey, you didn't lose your teeth. Your teeth lost you. You know, the world's unpredictable. I mean, I want to shank Rebecca, but she's in protective custody. So I'm just working hard to manifest the right scenario where she's going to lunch at the same time we're going to the yard.
You gotta love Western women, and I literally saw women do absolutely horrible things, and they justified it with those same exact talking points. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Radowski of WeAreChange.org. A lot of very important news to get into today, especially with the absolutely heinous, dangerous, backwards news coming from one of the largest cities in the United States that just implemented an absolutely discriminatory and dangerous policy. We're going to be going over that plus a lot more. There's so much to talk about. But before we do that, plus a lot more, the clip that we played in the beginning of this broadcast was, of course, from Ryan Long from his latest video that is titled When Girls Can Rationalize Anything. And I have to say, Ryan is a very important cultural warrior who definitely deserves you watching his videos and subscribing to his channel, and that's why we put this video down in the description below so you can see it in full. And we are very lucky that YouTube hasn't yet figured out how to censor satire. They will, but they haven't yet, but that's another story. And just jumping right into the news today, we also got very strange news surrounding the U.S. Capitol Police, as we have a third member of that police force that was found deceased in his home after allegedly taking his own life. This was Officer Gunter Kashida, who also left a wife and 3 children behind. What happened here, we don't know, but of course there's a lot of rumors and speculation. In other news, PayPal co-founder David Sacks just wrote a very interesting piece on his Substack newsletter that was titled, quote, "Get ready for the no-buy list," as he is warning everyone that big tech is colluding with the financial system in creating a de facto no-buy list that will predominantly go after dissidents or people who don't go along with the predictive programming and propaganda that is a part of the larger narratives being pushed on us. This, as of course, PayPal just announced a partnership with the very partisan and extremely politically divisive ADL, all of course as the White House has announced that it is working with Facebook to directly censor information that the government doesn't like. If you haven't read David Sacks' piece, I definitely recommend it that you should, since it gives us a very interesting perspective on the future problems ahead. But hey, that's why we launched LukeUncensored.com, our own very platform, which at this time, we are looking at alternatives to be able to financially transact with you through peaceful and aggregist ways. Again, I got a lot of future plans for LukeUncensored.com. It's all going to start with us being able to talk to each other. I did a very long, informative video for yesterday's members, which, by the way, was sent out to everyone's email for free. Yes, once in a while, we send out a sample of all the craziness that happens on Luke Uncensored for the people who are signed up on our email list. If you have already signed up, make sure to check your spam folder to see that those emails are not going in there. And many times we will reward you sporadically for just keeping in touch with us in a way that avoids the big tech social media monopolies by basically using email. If you haven't signed up to the email list, what are you waiting for? It costs you nothing. And the last announcement for today is that we are doing yet another apocalypse, survival, self-defense, real-world training drill this August 14th in New England. The link to that will be down in the description below. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to want to check it out. The link to that is also down in the description below. Hope to see you there. Now, in many parts of the world, but specifically here in the United States, something very strange is happening when it comes to a very invasive medical procedure that is being pushed on by the establishment, but the people who administer it face no liability from. The government, the media, the celebritards pushing this onto you also face no liability over a procedure that we were told that if people take, everything will go back to normal, and things are not going back to normal. They're going back with mandates, lockdowns, restrictions, as of course new information is coming out highlighting how 70% of the population in this country has already taken this procedure, and yet cases are surging from the official story that we're getting here. Clearly something's wrong here. The official story has fallen flat on its face. It absolutely doesn't add up. It makes no sense at all. While, of course, very powerful institutions and governments are still desperately trying to make sure that 100% of the people take this procedure, which should be absolutely mind-boggling with the current state of events as they are unfolding right now. And with the return of restrictions, lockdowns, mandates, we of course have government pushing even more to have control of your bodies and what you put inside of it. As of course yesterday, the disgraced governor of New York was demanding that private businesses ban anyone who doesn't take a procedure that he wants them to take. This disgraced governor, by the way, had his emergency powers taken away, mainly because of his incompetent leadership, and also the latest revelation of him hurting women in unspeakable ways. We can't talk about this on YouTube because it's an adult topic, but the New York Attorney General just announced through his investigation that in fact the serious allegations against this governor are correct and that he is guilty of them, and this is the man now dictating what you should do with your body. This man came out yesterday and said that the mayor of New York City should impose these insane, draconian, totally backwards policies. And today, Bozo the Clown, as some people call him, the mayor of New York City, just announced that if you, quote, want to participate in society, you will have to get this procedure, in an absolutely very dangerous and grave announcement that will have severe implications. We're going to tell you why in just a little bit, but New York City just announced that it will require proof of a procedure in order to do any kind of indoor activities, specifically dealing with dining, with going to the gym, and other activities that now New York City will be mandating businesses that have already been absolutely shattered and destroyed by the city's lockdowns previously before. Now businesses will have to add new restrictions, will have to have less business, because the city is announcing that if people want to freely transact with each other, they will need to do a procedure and get government permission before doing so. Again, nearly all indoor activities have now been tightly controlled and regulated by the city of New York that are imposing this absolutely backwards, illegal, discriminatory policies that will ruin and destroy businesses while denying people basic human rights. This is exactly what's happening here. Let's call a spade here. Everyone's afraid to do this. We're not. This is a gross violation of human rights for many reasons. One, this is an extortative, manipulative criminal action that is forcing people to take a procedure that predominantly will affect poor people the most and black people the most. So the white, goofy mayor of New York City just implemented a policy that will predominantly discriminate against the poor and black people of his city, since of course it's also important to point out that 66% of New York City residents have gotten this procedure, but the ones that haven't are predominantly in the black communities. A large number of blacks will now be denied basic human rights to do anything indoors, and this is an important point to the woke social justice warrior mayor that pretends to be an ally when in reality he is a complete and utter tyrant. There's no other way of documenting this because, again, a lot of innocent people will be hurt here, as of course there are medical professionals that are saying people that have natural immunity should not be taking this procedure because when they do, it's pointless and it leads to complications. 2, there's also people who are allergic and cannot take this procedure. If they do, they die. They are also heavily discriminated and had their human rights taken away. And 3rd, there are people that practice religion and it is their spiritual belief not to take this procedure. They as well had their basic human rights violated here as well. And why do this? Why do this when the majority of people, the majority of business, even the people that have taken this procedure are saying that this is absolutely ridiculous? The New York State Teachers Union came out and said that they do not support such mandates. Many medical professionals, many doctors are saying that this is absolutely unnecessary, that this is absolutely unproven. CNN even just wrote an article talking about how this procedure could be creating new variants and making the situation that much worse. Why are we doing this? And the real reason is that New York City is a test case for the rest of the world, as of course, as we know from the CDC director, the federal government is looking into making this policy federally mandated. Yes, the CDC director literally told Fox News that the government is looking into making this procedure mandatory federally all across the United States. We even had the White House sickness response coordinator literally come out and say it is time to impose this procedure to be mandated, to be required. And again, why? Why are we doing this when even Dr. Fauci said that people who take this procedure can spread the sickness? And what's happening in New York City is a litmus test to see how this will be carried out, to see the people who will comply with it, to see how far government overreach can go. And it will only go as far as you let it. If you let criminals like Andrew Cuomo or Bill de Blasio literally dictate your life as dictators, literally making up policies that have not been democratically passed, have not been approved on, have not been voted on. If you allow these dictators to control a hold of your existence, of your life, they will, and when they're done with it, they're going to go after more. And that's exactly what's going on here. And I have to agree with British broadcaster Jeremy Clarkson, who said a lot of this is just communist governments literally trying to keep the population under lockdown forever. Because what else could be an explanation to what's going on here, which is clearly against the science and against what many medical professionals advise. And again, we continue with the lockdowns, with the restrictions. The CDC just announced 16 destinations not to, quote, travel to. And another aspect to really consider here is how will these mandates, how will these lockdowns, how will these restrictions be implemented? Well, they're going to be implemented with the full might of the police state, just like they are in other places like Germany and in Australia, where literally they have martial law established with cruel and unusual punishment for people just trying to live their lives. Again, the current situation in Australia is absolutely grotesque. It's absolutely disgusting. We're going to be talking about that plus a lot more on LukeUncensored.com. And let's get the talking points straight here, because it's not a hyperbolic statement to say that people's human rights are being violated here, because they are. People not being able to do indoor activities in all of New York City because they have an allergy, because they have a religious belief, because their doctor tells them not to do something, because maybe they're at an extremely low risk, is tyranny at its finest, and this is a gross human rights violation. Let's call it what it is. We have seen such implementation in third world countries like in Pakistan, where people have literally had their cell phones shut down for deciding not to take this procedure. We're not far away from what Pakistan is doing. I would even argue what's happening in New York City is way worse. You compare that to what's happening in forward-thinking countries like Sweden, that has no lockdowns, no mask mandates, and has 0 deaths from this sickness. As I said from the very beginning last year, Sweden will be the official case study to really look at here to see which government policies work. Obviously, when you compare Sweden's approach to draconian approaches like we see in New York and California, we see Sweden doing way better than the rest of the United States. You even compare that to Florida and Texas. Overall, in the index of how many people were hurt here, financially, socially, economically, you could make a very strong argument that what the government did here was absolutely make this situation that much worse when it didn't need to be. New Hampshire, by the way, also gaining in personal freedom, as they just passed a new medical freedom law, which is the absolute total opposite of what New York State did. And that's why I am very happy to also be a resident of New Hampshire and to be in places where literally my participation in this state goes towards helping people rather than hurting them. If you live in New York City, your tax dollars, your participation in the economy, your participation just in that city alone helps fuel the government being able to hurt more people. Leave New York City. I left New York City. It's one of the best decisions I could ever make in my life. I left last year. I didn't look behind. I don't ever want to come back there. It is a hellscape filled with violent thugs and criminals that have taken over the streets, and I'm talking about the ones that wear suits and ties. It is not a hospitable place for you to grow up in. It is not a place that you want to live in. You give them a pinky, they'll take your whole hand and then repeatedly slap you upside the head with it, telling you how stupid you are for complying with them. And again, just my own personal opinion. If you think I'm wrong, let me know why in the comment section below. If you didn't like this video, dislike the video. I'm going to do the opposite of whatever these influencer tards want you to do. I got a lot more to say in an unfiltered way on LukeUncensored.com. Hope to see you there. Love you guys. Stay tuned for more.